Deep in the primordial jungles where sunlight never touches the forest floor, something ancient slithers through the shadows. Longer than 10 men and thick as a tree trunk, it moves with the silence of death itself. Tonight, you'll witness how 5 experienced hunters became prey to a serpent so massive it could swallow a man whole. This is the story of Terra Venenosa, when the jungle's apex predator decided that humans were just another meal. The prehistoric world was a realm of endless green, where towering trees formed cathedrals of shadow, and the air hung thick with moisture and the promise of death. In the heart of what would one day become the Amazon basin, a jungle stretched beyond the horizon, its canopy so dense that day and night blurred into a perpetual twilight. This was a world where every step could be your last, where predators had evolved to perfection over millions of years, and where the line between hunter and hunted shifted with each heartbeat. 5 warriors of the Serpent clan moved through this green hell, with the practiced silence of men who had learned that noise meant death. Led by Kyle, a scarred veteran whose body bore the marks of countless encounters with the jungle's deadliest inhabitants, they were the finest hunters their tribe had ever produced. Behind him followed Thane, his younger brother, whose keen eyes could spot danger in the deepest shadows. Jorik, a massive warrior whose strength had saved them from cave bears and dire wolves. Nara, the only woman among them but deadlier than any man with her poison-tipped darts. And young Bren barely passed his naming ceremony, but already showing the instincts that marked a true hunter. They had been tracking their quarry for 3 days through the maze of vines and ancient trees, following the trail of a creature that had been terrorizing the outer settlements of their territory. The signs they found defied belief. Trees stripped of bark in perfect spirals, massive gouges in the earth where something unimaginably heavy had passed, and the complete absence of all other wildlife in areas where the jungle should have teemed with life. Whatever they pursued was so large and dangerous that even the apex predators of the forest fled from its presence. The Serpent clan had survived in this hostile environment by understanding the language of the jungle, the subtle signs that warned of approaching danger, the patterns of behavior that revealed the presence of predators, and the ancient wisdom passed down through generations of hunters who had faced the worst the prehistoric world could offer. But the creature they now pursued was beyond their experience, something that existed in the darkest legends of their people. A monster from the time when the world was young and giants walked the earth. As they moved deeper into the jungle's heart, the very atmosphere seemed to change around them. The normal sounds of the forest, the calls of prehistoric birds, the rustle of small creatures in the undergrowth, the distant roar of predators claiming their territory, gradually faded to an unnatural silence that pressed against their eardrums like a physical weight. The air itself seemed thicker, harder to breathe, as if the jungle was holding its breath in anticipation of something terrible. Kyle raised his hand, bringing the hunting party to an immediate halt. His nostrils flared as he tested the air, detecting something that made his blood run cold. The scent was unlike anything in their experience, a mixture of rotting vegetation, ancient musk, and something else, something that spoke to the most primitive parts of their brains. It was the smell of a predator so old and powerful that it had become legend, a creature that had ruled these jungles since before humans learned to make fire. The first sign of their quarry came not as a sound or a scent, but as a feeling, the sensation of being watched by something vast and intelligent. Thane's sharp eyes caught movement in the canopy above, a shadow that seemed too large and too purposeful to be a trick of the light. As he followed the movement with his gaze, he glimpsed something that made his heart race with terror. A section of what he had taken for a massive vine was actually the coiled body of a serpent so enormous that his mind struggled to comprehend its true size. The Titanoboa had been following them for hours, moving through the trees with the silent grace of a creature that had perfected the art of ambush over millions of years of evolution. At nearly 50 feet in length and weighing as much as a small mammoth, it was the apex predator of the prehistoric jungle, a serpent so massive that it could crush the life from a cave bear or swallow a man whole without effort. Its intelligence was evident in every calculated movement, every patient adjustment of position as it maneuvered itself for the perfect strike. Nara felt the change in the jungle's energy before she saw the creature itself. Her hunter's instincts, honed by years of tracking the most dangerous predators in the forest, screamed that they were no longer the hunters, but the hunted. The realization hit her with the force of a physical blow. They had walked into the territory of something that viewed them not as threats to be avoided, but as prey to be consumed. The serpent's strategy became terrifyingly clear as it began to reveal itself in sections, allowing the humans to catch glimpses of its massive coils wrapped around tree trunks high above their heads. This was psychological warfare at its most primitive level. The creature was using their own fear against them, allowing terror to weaken their resolve before it struck. The Titanoboa had learned that frightened prey made mistakes, and mistakes in the jungle meant death. Jorik's massive frame tensed as he spotted another section of the serpent's body, this one closer to the ground and positioned to cut off their retreat. The creature had been herding them, using its enormous size to control their movement, while positioning itself for an attack that would leave no survivors. The warrior's hand moved instinctively to his club, but he knew that even his great strength would be useless against a predator of this magnitude. Young Bren, despite his inexperience, was the first to fully comprehend the scope of the trap they had walked into. His eyes, still sharp with youth, traced the serpent's body through the canopy and realized that what they were seeing was only a fraction of the creature's true length. The Titanoboa had coiled itself through the trees in a pattern that surrounded them completely, creating a living cage from which there could be no escape. The attack came with the sudden violence of a natural disaster. The Titanoboa's massive head descended from the canopy like a falling tree, its jaws opening to reveal fangs the size of daggers and a throat that could accommodate a full-grown man. The serpent's eyes, cold and alien, fixed upon Bren with the calculating gaze of a predator that had already selected its first victim. The young hunter's scream was cut short as coils thicker than his entire body wrapped around him with crushing force. Kyle's warrior instincts kicked in immediately, but fighting a creature of this magnitude was like battling a force of nature itself. His spear, which had pierced the hides of cave bears and dire wolves, bounced harmlessly off the serpent's scales, each one the size of a shield and harder than stone. The Titanoboa's hide had evolved over millions of years to deflect the claws and teeth of the jungle's most dangerous predators, making human weapons little more than annoyances. The serpent's strategy revealed itself as a masterpiece of predatory intelligence. Rather than attempting to kill all 5 hunters simultaneously, it focused on isolating and eliminating them one by one, while using its massive body to control the battlefield. Coils of muscle and scale created barriers that separated the hunters from each other, turning their coordinated tactics into individual struggles for survival. Thane attempted to reach his brother's position, but found his path blocked by a section of the serpent's body that moved with deliberate purpose to cut off his advance. The creature's intelligence was evident in every calculated movement. It understood pack tactics and was systematically dismantling their ability to fight as a unit. Each coil served as both weapon and shield, creating a constantly shifting maze that favored the predator's overwhelming size advantage. Nara's poison darts, deadly enough to kill a saber-toothed cat within minutes, had no effect on the Titanoboa's massive bulk. The creature's sheer size meant that even the most potent toxins would be diluted to harmlessness in its bloodstream. She watched in horror as her most effective weapons proved useless against a predator that existed on a scale beyond human comprehension. The serpent's constriction technique was a horrifying display of evolutionary perfection. As Bren struggled in its coils, the Titanoboa applied pressure with surgical precision, tightening its grip each time the young hunter exhaled while preventing him from drawing another breath. This was not the quick death of fang or claw, but a slow suffocation that allowed the predator to savor its victory while preparing for its next target. Jorik launched himself at the serpent's head in a desperate attempt to force it to release Bren, but the creature's reflexes were faster than human thought. The Titanoboa's tail, moving with whip-like speed, caught the massive warrior across the chest and sent him flying into a tree trunk with bone-crushing force. The impact left him gasping and broken, his great strength useless against a predator that outweighed him by thousands of pounds. The jungle itself seemed to conspire against the hunters, as the serpent used the environment to its advantage. Vines became snares, tree trunks became barriers, and the dense undergrowth that had once provided concealment now trapped them in the creature's killing ground. The Titanoboa had lived in this jungle for decades, learning every tree and shadow, turning the entire forest into an extension of its hunting strategy. Kyle realized that conventional tactics were useless against such a creature. Their only hope lay in exploiting the one advantage humans possessed over even the most perfect predators: intelligence and the ability to adapt quickly to changing circumstances. He began to move in a pattern that seemed random, but was actually designed to confuse the serpent's targeting, using the creature's own size against it by forcing it to constantly readjust its position. The battle became a deadly game of survival, as the remaining hunters used fire to create temporary barriers between themselves and the serpent's coils. The Titanoboa showed a healthy respect for flame, but it was too intelligent to be driven off by such primitive tactics. Instead, it began to use the smoke to its own advantage, moving through the haze like a ghost to strike from unexpected angles. Thane's desperate attempt to climb into the canopy and attack from above was anticipated by the creature with terrifying ease. A section of its body that had seemed dormant suddenly came alive, wrapping around the young hunter's legs and dragging him down into the waiting coils below. His screams echoed through the jungle as he joined his younger brother in the serpent's deadly embrace. The final confrontation came as darkness fell over the jungle. Kyle and Nara, the last survivors, found themselves backed against a massive tree, with the Titanoboa's head swaying hypnotically before them. The creature's eyes held an alien intelligence that seemed to mock their human pretensions of dominance over the natural world. In a final act of defiance, Kyle hurled his torch directly into the serpent's open mouth. The Titanoboa recoiled from the flames, its massive head thrashing as it dealt with the unexpected attack. The momentary distraction allowed Nara to slip away into the undergrowth, but Kyle was not so fortunate. The serpent's recovery was swift and terrible, its coils closing around the veteran hunter with the finality of death itself. As darkness consumed the jungle, Nara found herself alone among the trees, the sole survivor of an encounter that had claimed 4 of the finest hunters her tribe had ever produced. Behind her, the Titanoboa settled down to digest its meal, content in the knowledge that its territory remained inviolate. The terror Venenoso had claimed its prize, and the jungle had once again proven that humans were merely visitors in a world ruled by ancient predators.